Today I'll be starting a new dynasty to see if Deion Sanders can actually rebuild Colorado. They're coming off a 1-11 season, but with incoming transfers such as former #1 recruit Travis Hunter, two of Deion Sanders' sons, and many more talented players coming in, we'll see if Colorado can ever take home a national championship. The goal of this series is to keep it realistic so their in-game schedule is identical to their real-life one, but I couldn't change the opening matchup, so Deion Sanders' first game coaching at Colorado will be against Nebraska. His defense would hold the Cornhuskers to 3 on their first drive of the day, and now it was time for his son to take the field. Quarterback Deion Sanders was a junior, so he still had 2 seasons left of college eligibility, and he would find two-way player Travis Hunter for his first touchdown at Colorado. However, within seconds, Nebraska would respond back as Deion's other son, safety Shiloh Sanders, got toasted, and with a minute left in the first half, the Buffaloes were trailing by 6, so they needed to get on the board again, but while attempting to take off to get into the end zone, Deion Sanders would lose the football, and throughout the entire game, it was clear that he was not playing very well as his team went into the fourth down by 9. He just couldn't catch a break as this ball would hit off tight end transfer Seydou Traore's hands to get picked, but freshman corner Cormani McClain got an interception right after to set up this touchdown, and with one stop, Colorado still had a chance to win the game. Nebraska came out pressing, and even without Scott Frost there anymore, they were still making terrible decisions, as Montana Lemonis Craig went for 50 yards, and that would set up the game-winning field goal from Jackson State transfer Alejandro Mata, getting Deion a rivalry win in his first game here. Wide receiver Steve Thompson was at the top of his recruiting board, and success probably wouldn't last for very long because number 4 TCU was next on the schedule and Deion Sanders was struggling to find anybody open, so instead he just handed it off to halfback and Kentucky transfer Kavisier Smoke and let him go to work on the Horned Frogs defense. In fact, he would have scored the go-ahead touchdown to end the first half, but Deion Sanders overthrew him by a bit, and on the following play, he panicked when he saw the blitz, losing the football instead of just throwing it away. Luckily, TCU's junior quarterback Chandler Morris would turn it right back over to safety Trevor Woods, and the Horned Frogs defense was expecting us to just run out the rest of the half, but instead, Deion Sanders went with an aggressive play-calling approach, and it paid off because of Seydou Traore. It turns out Alejandro Mata had just a strong enough leg to drill this 49-yard kick to tie it up, and it's too bad that Max Duggan Jr. started the third quarter with a touchdown for TCU. They had a few good drives, and with 4 minutes remaining, it was a 2-possession game until Deion Sanders did this. But to have a chance at tying it at 31, Colorado needed a defensive stop, and they got the Horned Frogs to a 3rd and 16, but with way too much time in the pocket, Chandler Morris was able to find a wide open receiver, and that would seal the Buffalo's fate. This would be Colorado's first loss, but off the field, Deion was recruiting like a madman, and there were now 3 star wideouts that wanted to come to Colorado. In Deion Sanders' first season at Colorado, he only had one goal, and that was to get this team to a bowl game, which would be possible but also challenging to do. Even though he brought many recruits over with him to Boulder, he still inherited a 1-11 team, and this was how most drives seemed to end. The defense seemed to do a pretty good job of clamping up when they needed to, so it might have taken more than a quarter, but Colorado still scored first, and approaching halftime, the lead increased to 10. Unfortunately, it didn't last long as Arizona State running back Tevin White got sick of not having any points, and by the fourth quarter, we were trailing by 1. Deion Sanders would respond back though with a laser up the seam to his tight end, and he even made sure that he got the 2-point conversion as well. All that was needed was one final defensive stop, and junior cornerback Nico Reed proved why he shouldn't be tested. Colorado picked up their second victory of the year, but Deion Sanders needed a miracle if he was going to win the next one because his team was facing number 4 UCLA and they were stacked. Ethan Garber's team hadn't lost a game yet, and it didn't seem like it was going to happen today. Deion Sanders did a decent job of keeping it somewhat of a contest, and that was important because after this clutch goal line interception, there was still hope. However, UCLA's offense wouldn't get stopped again after that, and this final score shows how bad it really got. At least recruiting-wise, Deion had a lead on every player that he wanted, but getting wins with this team wouldn't be easy, so Cormani McClain starting the game with a pick was huge, and it could have gone even better if Deion Sanders didn't overthrow corner and wide receiver Travis Hunter by 20 yards. Luckily, USF transfer Jimmy Horn Jr. would make up for it on the next play by making a fool out of the Washington State defender, and Kavisier Smoke punched it in. To start the third quarter, Deion Sanders threw for his second touchdown of the day, today, and he was starting to finally get in a rhythm as he kept finding his favorite target. Deion Sanders was thrilled to watch his son dominate for the first time at Colorado, and making a bowl game was a lot more realistic now. 77 overall JUCO Chad Jones committed after that, and everyone else got scheduled to visit in week 8 against Cal, but first we had to play Arizona, and from the start it wasn't looking too pretty for us. Even though Shedeur Sanders was making accurate throws today, his receivers weren't holding on to it, and quarterback Jaden Delora was giving us a hard time. Fortunately, Ty Robinson made up for his drop by holding on to this touchdown snag, but it wouldn't matter if the defense couldn't clutch up with a stop, and when Arizona needed to hold us on 4th down, they were able to do so with a huge hit, which made it very clear that this Colorado team was very inconsistent. Next week was visit week, so we had to win, and we would need a lucky start to be in a good position. Speaking of getting lucky, you have a chance to win $1 million every day throughout the NBA playoffs when you use Prize Picks, today's video sponsor. It's super simple to set up, so I'll show you all how. First, you sign up the Prize Picks using code BOARD so you can double your initial deposit up to $100, and then you click this little tab to opt into the $1 million giveaway. How it works is you just play Prize Picks like normal, selecting if players will go higher or lower than their current projections, and each day one random entry will give out an additional entry, and if you get that one, you'll have your chance at $1 million, but even if you get like 4 of the 6 right, you can still win 16 grand. So make sure you don't miss out on this by signing up to Prize Picks with code BOARD, and let's see how visit week goes for Deion Sanders. There were multiple 5-star wide receivers visiting this week, so beating Cal was very important, and Ty Robinson got the Buffaloes off to a great start with this play. But after getting held to 3, things quickly went downhill as Shedeur Sanders threw an interception that would get taken back all the way to the house to put the Golden Bears up by 7, and making a bowl game with this team was going to be very hard for Deion Sanders to do, but this was his first year here, so that was always expected. Fortunately, the wide receivers that were visiting and thinking about committing to the program got a great show as Jimmy Horn Jr. was making guys look silly, and the defense was doing a solid job, so it was still far from being over, but offensively, Shedeur Sanders was struggling to find anybody open, and that's why cornerback Travis Hunter had to step up big time. He read Cal quarterback Kai Milner like a book, and there was no way anybody on the Golden Bears was catching him as he would get his first pick 6 at Colorado on this play. All of a sudden, the game had flipped around as we had a chance to win it, and I think it's safe to say it was all because of Travis Hunter. With 45 seconds left though, Cal responded back as they were able to find the end zone, so Shedeur Sanders had to get his team in field goal range to go for the win, but he forgot to hold on to the ball in the process, and on the following play, the Golden Bears went with a pass instead of settling for 3, which left them wide open. There was still a chance on the final play of the game we could send it to overtime as Montana Luminous Craig got open, but he couldn't break free after the catch, so visit week technically ended bad for Colorado, but a lot of recruits still committed because they wanted to play for Deion Sanders. The Buffalo's hardest game was up next though, and I couldn't believe it, but Cormani McLean forced Caleb Williams into an interception to start the day. Deion Sanders had done a great job with the defense, but the offense was still an issue, and his son Shedeur just wasn't ready to play against opponents of this caliber yet. With too much time in the pocket, USC was able to increase their lead on us to 14 points, and I don't even want to talk about how the rest of the game went. Luckily, Colorado State was our next opponent, and this rivalry matchup was a perfect opportunity to get back on track to making a bowl game. We needed 6 wins to make that happen, so we could only lose one more time this year, but after getting beat up in the Pac-12, this was a refreshing experience. Even though Colorado State was 7-1, they sure did not play like it, and with Cavisier Smoke's great performance, Deion Sanders won his first ever Rocky Mountain Showdown, which also led to even more wide receivers committing. The offense would be greatly improved next year, but for now, we had to win, and Shedeur Sanders had 0 time in the pocket, so like normal, our success depended on how well the defense played, because Oregon State seemed to be 3 steps ahead of us on everything. Unfortunately, midway through the second quarter, they had some receivers that were extremely difficult to bring down, so the only thing we couldn't afford to do was turn the ball over, but of course, Shedeur Sanders did it anyway. Deion's bowl game hopes seemed to be like they would be over in his first year here, but his team got some life after they finally scored, and even though Oregon State would find the end zone right after, it didn't take long for the Buffaloes to respond back, and it might have taken forever, but the offense was in a rhythm. Then, on the other side of the ball, Oregon State was held just short of a first down, so somehow there was still a chance to come back and win, and I don't even know how to explain what happened here. here. Wide receiver Ty Robinson got multiple amazing blocks by his teammates, allowing him to take a broken play all the way into the end zone, and even on the 2-point conversion, this throw was converted upon, and I don't know how. The Beavers did manage to move the ball down the field on us with a minute left though, so holding them to 3 instead of 6 was massive because we still had an opportunity to get the win, and Jimmy Horn Jr. was determined to make it happen. With 10 seconds left on the clock, he found the open space in the defense, and he would go 45 yards for the game-winning touchdown. Deion Sanders had an incredible stat line, and we were one win away from bowl eligibility, but both matchups were tough. Beating number 6 Oregon felt almost impossible since we were playing at their place and they only had one loss, but Deion Sanders found Jimmy Horn Jr. on the drag underneath, and after he embarrassed multiple players, he got us onto the board first, and 4-star recruit Dylan Edwards got himself a touchdown as well. This was the exact way we needed to play to pull off the upset, and even the defense was getting clutch goal line stops on the Ducks, meaning we went into the half up by 7. Oregon was quick to tie it in the third quarter though, so Deion Sanders had to lead us down the field again, and he threaded the needle to freshman Chase Sowell. Backup halfback Dylan Edwards even found the end zone for a second time today, but with a little less than 2 minutes left, Oregon had an opportunity to tie it up, and wide receiver Troy Franklin did so by toasting our entire defense for a 91-yard score, which meant we had to get in field goal range one last time to pull off the upset, and Oregon made that really easy to do as they sent the house. Sophomore Ty Robinson got wide open, and he got it inside the 15, which made this a super easy field goal for kicker Alejandro Mata. Deion Sanders had done it again, and our final regular season game was against number 18 Utah. This team was actually bowl eligible, which was a vast improvement from going 1-11 last year, but we still had many weaknesses, and the Utes exposed each one. They controlled the clock so well that we barely had the ball, and we would end up losing the rivalry matchup, but we still made a bowl, and it was against the Zips. Deion Sanders had a really solid junior year, and I was shocked Ty Robinson was our leading receiver. Deion Sanders' final game in his first year at Colorado was in the Independence Bowl against Akron, and if it wasn't for the pouring rain, Travis Hunter might have gotten a pick 6 on this play. In all honesty, the Zips were playing pretty well, as going into the half, it was still a one-possession game, and their defense was the only reason they were in it, as they continued to lock up Deion Sanders. With 3 minutes left, the Buffaloes were still only up by 8 points, but Travis Hunter stepped up big time as he actually held onto the ball to intercept this one, and Deion Sanders had officially gotten Colorado a winning record in year 1. The program was clearly improving with him as the coach, and almost nobody was leaving the college going into the next year, so with the number 5 recruiting class in the country and numerous players that could immediately come in and contribute, the future should be bright for Colorado.